Roseman saying he bleeds for this city because he took a beer can to the face, and you see the beer can on the top of his forehead with some blood. So, oh my goodness, you can't make it up in Philadelphia. So after the dust settles and everybody sobers up, this Eagles team, they've got a ton of decisions to make, especially Howie Roseman. And Graz, when you look at this team, how much room do they have to work with, especially now dealing with a lot of big question marks?
Yeah, when that cut on Howie Roseman's forehead heals, he's going to have to figure out who on the defensive side of the ball the Eagles can and can't keep. Cap space-wise, they're kind of middle of the pack. We don't even know what the cap is yet, but relative to other teams, kind of middle of the pack is where they should land. But three key free agents on the defensive side of the ball, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, and Zach Bond, all three of whom were instrumental in that Super Bowl victory and all year long. Add in Mekhi Becton on the offensive line, and they have some decisions to make about who to keep. It's not really the cap space as much as the way their cash payments for other big contracts start to get more expensive in the next couple of years. Guys like Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith have their contracts built till they'll be making more salary, more cash over the next couple of years. And then you have the extensions possibly looming for guys like, Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter over the next couple of years. So the Eagles have to budget out over the next 3 or 4 years their whole salary cap and cash plan and figure out who can stay and who can't.
Man, whatever that budget is, Zach Bond better be at the top of it. Listen, this is a dude that not a lot was expected of coming into this season. And Kevin, you know this, being an Eagles fan, he was an absolute stud and a star from week 1 in Brazil versus Green Bay. He's shown position versatility. He's shown that he can be the off linebacker. He can be the green dot. And he's an absolute turnover machine, being an all-pro this year in 2024. To me, Zach Bond is a centerpiece of what this defense is. And obviously you want to keep Sweat. Obviously you want to keep Milton Williams. But there's some things in the draft that may help you with that. You don't just pick up guys like Zach Bond off the street unless you're picking up Zach Bond off the street.
Yeah, I completely agree, Ryan. And while I don't like to make draft predictions, I will make one now. Whenever the Eagles pick first, whether it's at the end of the first or they trade up or trade down, they're going to take a defensive lineman, and we're all going to go, how did the Philadelphia Eagles get that guy? How did Howie Roseman do it again? Because I do think that's what's going to happen. RC, you alluded to this. This draft class, in terms of defensive linemen, is stacked. I mean, I'm just starting to study them now. There are so many defensive tackles that should go in the first round. There's great edges, too. And the Eagles have such a proven track record when it comes to finding both offensive and defensive linemen. Whereas a Zach Bond, I find it very hard to believe you're going to get that kind of skill set and intelligence, frankly, from a rookie linebacker. So that is the position I would focus on keeping, and I would draft the defensive line.
And keep in mind, if you look at the track record for the Eagles, they obviously target defensive linemen and offensive linemen in the draft. They do not target linebackers. They do not put a premium, so they hit one out of the park with Zach Bond right there. Now, the Eagles' dominating run has put a handful of teams on notice, especially within the NFC East, as Pennsylvania native and Cowboys star Micah Parsons said this about his team entering the offseason. Listen to this. Obviously, talent is here, but we've just got to finish and go be aggressive the same way they did. I don't want to sit back and just watch other people build and we stay the same. So we definitely need some call to action. Now, the Cowboys haven't made big offseason splashes recently. Look at this. This surprised me. Their biggest free agent signing over the last 5 seasons, guys, was Gerald McCoy's 3-year, $18 million deal in 2020. Otherwise, their largest deals were for 1 year worth less than $5 million. The biggest trade they've made in that span was for wide receiver Brandon Cooks, who has averaged 36 receiving yards per game in his 2 seasons with the team. So with all of that, Mina, what should be the Cowboys' biggest priority in the offseason?
Yeah, in the past, the Cowboys' approach has just been to pay their own, but pay them too late. I would not make that mistake with Micah Parsons. First, you got to restructure Dak Prescott's contract. That obviously $90 million cap hit isn't going to stick around. And then with that flexibility you gain, you sign Micah Parsons to the biggest deal that any edge rusher has ever signed. Now, I do think that to his point, they need to be active in finding a receiver. Obviously, they need to get better running the football and stopping the run. I imagine that'll be a priority in the draft. But priority number one is number 11, who is one of the 3 best defensive players in the NFL, in my estimation.
Yeah, and a lot of people, Mina, would tell you that the Eagles are one of the teams that really knows how to press the advantage on going to their star players early for contract extensions. And obviously the Cowboys have not done that. So Micah Parsons, getting him under contract long-term is a priority. In terms of their own free agents to re-sign, nothing gigantic. Jordan Lewis, the cornerback, Oso Digizua, a couple of guys that they might look to re-sign. But, of course, they're on defense, and they have a new defensive coordinator, so we'll see how that all shakes out. But the Cowboys, in terms of free agency, I think the sense I get is that they've heard what people have said, that they probably believe there's a happy medium somewhere between going nuts in free agency, which they don't believe is the right way to build a roster, and doing pretty much nothing, which is what they did last year. So I do think you'll see them go out, maybe add to the offensive and defensive lines, and definitely add another wide receiver.
Some advice, too. You can't say in the offseason we're all in. Because you said that last year. You send a message to the entire fan base.
Say whatever you want.
And then you're not all in. So that's one thing. Don't set up the fan base by, hey, we're all in. You get everybody excited, and then you don't do anything of relevance.
Yeah, I think the big thing is, we talked about being nuts. Being nuts or going nuts would be not paying Micah Parsons first, not getting that deal done. I agree with Mina wholeheartedly. He's not only the leader on the field, but off the field, he's a guy that's championed the Dallas Cowboys every opportunity he gets a chance to speak. And then I think you go out and you try to talk to John Lynch about acquiring Deebo Samuel, talking to him, will you be in shape? What do you want to do? How do you want to fit into this offense? And now that's a guy that can play running back, a guy that can play receiver, somebody that can be a number 2 and a chess piece off of CD Lamb. And then when you get into the draft, this gives you flexibility of whether you want to pick someone that helps you run the football or someone that helps you stop the run. For years, Mina and I, Marcus, Dan, we've talked about the fact that they can't stop the run. Not built well at linebacker, not built well in the middle of that defense from a defensive tackle perspective, even though you addressed it a couple of years ago in the draft. So if you go get Deebo Samuel, now you build your offense around Dak, and CD Lamb, and maybe you can find a way to stop the run in the middle of the field defensively early in the draft.
Another conversation, too, in this division. It's always been the Cowboys and somebody else, right? Especially the last decade. Now it's the Eagles and Commanders and the Cowboys. So keep that in mind on how that develops here in the offseason leading into what they plan on doing in 2025. All right, we're just getting started here. Today, I'm sorry. Good luck and make a card. Let's play matchmaker without the swiping. Our first analyst is a diehard Seahawks fan, but she'd rather be lovesick than seasick. And it is Mina Kimes. Our second analyst knows a thing or two about love because he's written a book or two about love, Dan Graziano. And our third analyst first love was the Pits, but now he's winning awards and hearts on the big screen. Welcome, Ryan Clark. Mina, our first analyst, let's start with you. Contestant number 1 has spent some time in colder weather, but he's ready to warm up with some